Hello. I thought I would remark a little bit on my experiences with religions. I sought to find um, what was attractive in the religions and what the experiences of them were. And so I have joined them, a number of them, in my youth. And I've found something to like about all of them, and I think I've come to appreciate the good in them. They were educational to me, and coming to the positions that I hold today. I have a great feeling for what these things taught me in terms of an overall picture of what spirituality is. My difference with them is the idea that we can know things, or that we should say we know things that, well, for which we have no evidence. We expect anybody else to believe something just because we say so, or just because some ancient book says so. These ancient books said a lot of things, and some of them definitely were in error. What brought an understanding to me of all of these religious experiences was my understanding of psychology as taught by the great Arthur Janow. This tied everything together for me. I could see the good, and I could see that which should be improved. I have a very strong sense of spirituality and rely on it. But it troubled my mind to tell people that to give, well, let's put it this way, to put frameworks around the experiences I had, which for which there's no real evidence. So my conclusion was that we need to follow a path, and that path was a path toward virtue, which religions try to teach, and I believe fail at miserably in many cases. But there is a path to that, and that we teach the path, and we don't give our personal notions and opinions. And so that is the extent to which I am religious today, is that I teach those things which I have found to be of benefit. And kind of, I guess, following what the Buddha said once was, if it makes sense to you, and it works for you, and, then, go for it. If it doesn't, don't. So I found that which led to great change in me, and that is what today I support. And it was a long journey. Toward the end of my journey, it was a spirit-filled Christian journey. And I met Jimmy Carter's little sister back before, when she was alive. And Ruth Carter, whose married name was Ruth Carter Stapleton. She taught something called inner healing, and had an approach that Arthur Jenoff did not approve of, which was to refashion traumatic memories, to inject into them some sense of love. And he was adamant against that. But what I found was that when you combined some of the things that he didn't like as an approach, that there was a path to the same achievements that he claimed. So, from the Krishnas, I gained a real appreciation for that creative reflective ability that we have, and I call that the artist. That is, in a sense, my higher power. Now, in the mythology, and I'm open about it, that it's a mythology. In my mythology, and I believe, yes, as the great mythologist Joseph Campbell did, that mythology can be useful. In my mythology, the artist is that, and well, in reality, it's that higher reflective development in our brains. But it's also a higher power. And in my mythology, that creative ability, that ability to see things from different perspectives and to imagine, is a way for introspection. And this introspection can include the influence of our objective perspectives, which I call the director in us, and our empathetic perspectives, which I call the caregiver in us. Now, in this mythology, it is that emotional kid in us that is experiencing the drama of life directly, more and more directly. And in that direction, in that situation, the kid in us needs some sense of context and survival comforts, and the understanding objectivity of the director, and the helps us to deal with anxieties from the present looking into the future, which I think is important. And the caregiver helps us with empathy, which I say helps us with anxieties from the present looking into the past. To get the best out of the past and the future is good for our sense of liberation in the present, and when those things dissolve, when we have worked those things out for at any moment in time significantly, then we have a sense of what I call heaven, heaven now. A place of joy, of being at play in life, which I think is very empowering. I call that a direct relationship with the artist, who, unlike the director in us and the caregiver in us, is above our timeline. And yet, those reflective abilities, in my mythology, that introspective imagination reaches into within our imagination, enters into our experience, into our timeline, as the director and the caregiver. So, in the path of Buddhism, this is called wisdom and compassion. These two major things are important in Buddhism. And so the director is about the wisdom, the objectivity, the understanding, and the caregiver, that's about compassion. From these three reflective abilities, I see in the empathy, the empathetic caregiver, the source of our goodness. And I see in our objective director the source of our appreciation for what is actually true. I take a very scientific view toward that. I don't believe in my truth and your truth. I believe in objective truth. If there's no objectivity to it, then it just isn't truth. It's something that comforts you, or something, a useful idea to you, but it is not an attachment to the virtue of truth. So, in that way, I'm very much opposed to some of the religious concepts out there. The artist in us, well, that creativity is the source of a virtue I call art. And it's actually, when we're engaged with art, we're at play. And whether creating or experiencing creativity, we're in an exchange between the artist and the kid in us, is what I call the emotional core. And in that exchange, we are enjoying life, ourselves, and others, and that's what art is to me. It's this ability to appreciate the beauty in things no matter what. Everything can be appreciated and sorrows can be diminished by an artistic approach. And by that I mean music and art and all the arts. All of them. So, this is how I see, this is how I've come to see things. Now, as I said, from Buddhism, there was this concept of compassion and wisdom coming together to connect to the unimaginable reality, which is nirvana, which is freedom, which is a kind of heaven on earth. To me, that's communication with the artist. So, what did I get from Hinduism? Well, Hinduism, there's a connection between the Atman and Brahman, and I'm taking the Vaishnava view. That's my preferred version of Hinduism. So then we have, in this separation, you have this longing for connection. And as the Vaishnavas say, I think there's never a complete absorption into Brahman, or in my system, the artist. I mean, there is a sense of oneness, and there is a tether between our direct experience of life and that reflective ability which frees us to enjoy life to its full. This connection is heaven on earth, and it comes about when we have dealt well and with our compassionate and wise approaches in life. So that having been done, the association with the artist becomes clear. So, in Hinduism, there is this, as I say, this difference, and yet there's a oneness involved with it. It's really all you, correct? And a realization of this totality as being yourself is the goal of Hinduism and yoga. Aham Brahmasmi. I am that Brahman. I am that artist. Yeah. See? You can make you smile. Or Tattvamasi, that artist, that ideal, that Brahman. I am. So those are two ways that this is stated in the Vedas. But if you look at it in a very scientific or practical kind of way, which I think I approach with my approach, it's very simple. It's realizing you are the whole brain, not just part of it. And all of that reflective ability, that's you. And so is the part of you that experiences things more directly in an emotional sense. So, not a big mystery there. From Christianity, you get the notion of grace, that doing good things is not enough to make you a better person. You have to have a heart change. And that I believe. So I borrowed that from Christianity, I suppose you could say. But also, I saw a dovetailing between that and the process of change, which is involved with overcoming damaged faith and love, which is nobody's fault. Not really. That's where I differ a bit. I don't believe we're going to be judged and thrown into an eternal hell or something. I don't believe that. I don't believe people are guilty and in need of punishment. They're suffering and in need of liberation, which is a very different perspective, which I say is less neurotic than the punishing approach, which doesn't really improve things very much. It might produce better human doings, people that act in a way that's more socially acceptable, but it doesn't create better human beings. So how do we create better human beings? Well, what makes us less than who we should be growing to be? What holds us back? I'll say it's damaged faith and love. In Genovian terms, that's primal pain. So with this, what is this damaged faith and love? Well, it's helplessness attached to our needs and feelings and even our expression of love because of trauma and deprivation. And no mammal can handle helplessness. It's not anybody's fault that they are lost, but it's not any act of will that will make them better. It's unless the only willpower involved is becoming, is learning, learning the path of what I call feeling. That connection to those feelings that were wrapped in helplessness, such that we can feel them and integrate the fact of that into a more safe mental condition that we may currently have. And that means your safety is not just that you're eating plenty now and so on. It's that mental development. Like if you whatever strengths you have, which some would call ego strengths, whatever strengths you have to reflect and to care and to be loved, is that way, that part of the bridge that we need to connect to those things, to be able to handle reliving that helplessness. In fact, feeling that helplessness for the first time, because we never really felt it before. The brain automatically blocks feelings of helplessness, and it does it in a variety of ways, and it saves us at that time, because we would sicken and die under the influence of helplessness. But it does it by giving us, in some cases, this kind of symbolic act out to, it creates symbolic need in place of the real need in the beginning, which might have meant to run away, which we couldn't, or to fight back, which we couldn't, at that level, but also the inability to receive love in that situation. Salvation, somebody pulling us out of the situation and so on, before it created that helplessness. So we live in a symbolic kind of approach to life and to the world. Symbols of feeling are symbols of need. These symbols of need cannot fulfill us. We never feel satiated. We never feel full. So it's an addiction. It's a constant thing. So if money is love to you, you keep getting more money, and your anxiety is felt when you're a billionaire and you lose $1 million. That's greed. We're not secure enough in order to really be who we are, one with Brahman, one with the ability to love, which is what the reflective abilities give us, and one with the ability to feel where we are and what we need honestly. So, again, it's not an act of will, it's an act of grace, because there are two ways in which we can begin to feel situations in which we were helpless, and accept those feelings of helplessness in a safe condition and overcome it. And so feeling, you have to be surprised by it. No, the reason it was shut down was because of fear of possible death or great illness or injury. But an act of will cannot fix you. I remember I tried to approach it that way once. I bravely went down and laid on an old mattress in a basement, and I said, I'm not getting up from here, kind of like a Buddha under the tree. I'm not getting up from here until I felt all of those fears, all of that helplessness, and so on. And I tried to directly experience it. The mind started chattering. Thoughts came to me. Could be rats in this mattress. I recognized that as a defense, and I said, there are no rats in this mattress. There's absolutely no evidence for that. And, it says, I'm going to persevere. And the next thing I knew, I had, without any act of real will, I had gone to the top of the stairs, off of that mattress, and away from that situation. So you don't force yourself. And it's a very bad approach. It's not an act of will. It's an act of, it's something that we do because we're surprised, right? Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Yeah. So it's a surprising thing. When we're suddenly surprised, it breaks through those defenses if we're at a point where we can, handle that level of intensity of helplessness. And then, we may cry, or we feel that old helplessness. And that is something where you need somebody outside. And I think you always need somebody outside, or a few people, to help you begin the journey. I know that the value of the guru in Hinduism. You need some help. And I don't believe that the one helping is going to be perfect. And so it's good to have more than one person helping you. And you will get that if you enter the path. Well, what is the path? Well, I call it the path of redemption. And the path of redemption means that you feel that helplessness, you feel what happened to you, so that you can know those needs that were blocked, so that you can know what you lost, so that you can grieve that loss and let it go, so that you can then be free to forgive yourself and others involved. Till then, you've got this very punishing attitude. Forgiveness doesn't enter your mind because you're still hurting from the grief. So that has to be taken care of, and then you can forgive from your heart, which is very different than just saying that you forgive and trying to block the whole thing, which might be relieving, but doesn't really give you the full impact of becoming a better human being. After the forgiveness of yourself and others, there comes a point where you're able to feel, to some degree, the times when the hurt in you were helpless because of the hurt in you, and did things or said things or whatever that hurt other people. And this is feeling the monster in you. That's the last thing that a person is going to be able to feel. It's a process of getting there, and you get there by degrees. This is a process you do over and over, going deeper and deeper. So it's not a once over lightly and I'm done. It doesn't work like that. So once you get to that point, then you feel the impact and the sorrow of what you did, and you feel true remorse, and you have tears for that, or what you did, sorrow, deep sorrow. And when that happens, the beautiful thing is that to some degree, you are no longer the person who did that. And as one old guru said, you can't call somebody in the shower a dirty person. So when you've entered into the path, that's a noble thing. But it isn't a matter of will, it's a matter of amazing grace, it's a matter of surprising love. Now, what is the other path that you can take other than being surprised? That means to follow a process that will wear down those defenses. And I say that can be done by attempts to love yourself and others with those three virtuous views: empathy, objectivity, and creativity in the service of love. So, with all the love in my heart, I hope that some of this has been helpful to you, and that you will come to see that you and everyone, all of us together, are each the heroes and the stars in the movie of our own lives, struggling against those things within and those things without, which block us from the true way, the true path. And remember, all teaching is, as the Buddha said, is like a finger pointing to the moon. You have to leave the finger and get a direct experience of the moon. And so, your path may be different, but these aspects are going to be very much in play in your personal transformation. So, and this is what will heal the world. And so I end with the word that I've come to love: Namaste, which means that hero in me honors that hero in you. That part of me which is one with the universe honors that same in you. Namaste.